My name is Javier Andrade. Today is February 13th, 2024. I'll be leading the PLC for 5th grade. We'll be going over our PLC chart that we use in our campus. We will be going over a school project for International Women's Day in a few weeks, as well as going over current behavior, some issues that we've been having, as well as some possible solutions that we could start brainstorming. Okay, so welcome. Thank you guys for being here. We're gonna start off this PLC just by going over what we're going over in our classes for the week. We have our reading teacher and our science teacher, with some teachers absent from 5th grade, but we'll be going over these. We'll be starting with reading. What are we going over in reading this week?
So this week we're going over paired selections with an emphasis on text structures and organizational patterns. So kids are learning how to make connections from two different types of selections. Sometimes it's a poem, sometimes it's a drama, sometimes they're both informational. So they're looking at these different genres and finding a bridge and finding connections between both of them. So that's the objective of this week.
Oh, very nice. And what's the closing product?
Their closing product right now, they're creating a poster, which is a graphic organizer. And since we're going over text structures, they are identifying the text structure within the selection, and they are making a poster with a group. So it's peer collaboration.
Oh, very nice. And every student is working in groups? Is there an option to work on their own, or are you encouraging them to work in groups?
I want to encourage them to work into groups, also especially the ones that are very good at doing it really fast and efficiently. They're the ones that want to be alone. But I try to encourage them to try to help somebody out, so that you're in like this group and you're going to help them. You're going to be the leader, the supervisor. And so then they do help me, and that goes well and well with the peer tutoring because they learn very well from each other. So I do let them. But in the moment that they get really frustrated, I do have a couple of kids who do get frustrated and overstimulated. I do let them work by themselves. So they have that option with me.
Okay, but that's like on a one-to-one basis, they have that option.
Yes, they have that option.
But normally you'd encourage for them
I would
to work.
encourage them for them to help me because they're in smart groups. So then they are mixed in levels. So I have high achievers with bubble kids and with a little bit of the low group. So,
Okay, and bubble kids, if you could just clarify.
Oh, bubble kids are right in the middle, so they're like right at the cusp of being very good, or sometimes if they're not motivated, they won't get anything done. So.
Okay, all right. So for acceleration for this.
So the students who have already mastered this, they're learning how to synthesize information from both text and create an informational essay. So if they're done, like, okay, so now let's bring all this information, let's synthesize it, let's put it together, and let's create an informational essay.
Wow.
So, and they can do this independently because they've already mastered it.
Wow, that's very interesting. I guess with the synthesis, is there how many opportunities are they getting to do this synthesis for the accelerated ones?
So they have it's an outline, and it's part of StoryWorks. So what StoryWorks does, it creates different types of questionings or CPQs, and these are high-level order questions. So then they choose. They're like, okay, do we want to go this route, or do we want to make the connections on this route? And then they get to choose. So it's kind of also a choice board. Is it a choice board?
Yeah.
So they get to choose. It's not just like, oh, Ms. Garcia's making us write an informational essay.
Yeah,
They get to choose what's high interest for them. They want to do a comic book strip, or they want to go straight into just writing. They get to choose that. So, they like that because it's very interesting for them.
That's very cool. That sounds like a fun lesson. I'm sure there's not too much pushback if they get to choose.
They want to finish work so that they can do that.
To get to that's awesome. And then what about for what's the other one?
The intervention.
For intervention, yes, I'm sorry.
So for intervention, it's more of a small group instruction. I sit them with me, or I sit them in their smart groups, and we are making connections. Again, I want to emphasize that, making connections. A couple of weeks back, we were doing text to text, text to self, and text to world or society. So just emphasizing that text to text, we're going one by one. Instead of synthesizing all three of them, we're just going with text to text. Okay, what other book have we read that has to do with that? Okay, now let's go to text to self. What are your experiences, your background knowledge that you have on this? And text to society, what's happening in the world. We're talking about natural disasters, or we're talking about wars that are going on, and they get to learn about what's happening right now in society.
Yeah, very nice. Differentiation.
So for my SPED students, I do have supplemental aids for them. My Spanish students, I have translated text. Like I said, I have peer grouping, and I have small group intervention for them. They like sitting with their friends and their partners, but I just make sure that at least there's one student that can master it so that they can help them out and they won't be all lost.
Okay.
So that's for differentiating.
And how's that working so far with those groups?
It's good. They like it, and they like knowing that they're helping somebody else, and especially if they're friends, I'll have them. Someone who's very strong, they all bring strengths. So someone who's very strong in writing,
That's nice.
with someone who's really strong in reading, and then someone who's really strong in having all these funny, wacky ideas. So they do that.
That's good. I mean, recognizing the strengths of the student
Yes.
is very important. So that's nice that you can
And that they all
recognize that.
they know that they all bring something to the table.
Well, very cool. And then for the exit ticket.
So like I said, since we're doing text structures and we're doing connections, the one that I wanted to focus a little bit on, because I saw that they were struggling a little bit with more, was the connections. So for the exit ticket, I said, what are two similarities between both selections? They have to give me that similarity. What do they have in common? What are they alike? And they know how to use those keywords in a short constructed response on
Okay.
Google Classroom.
Oh, okay. So it's
They
they're
post
writing
it.
it. Yes, they're
They
posting
post it, and then the whole class is able to read it. So then they get ideas, and once they're all done, they get ideas, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't think of that." So then we talk about it.
it. Cool. And the exit tickets, is that every day or is that
It's every day.
semi-regular?
If we didn't have time and we had to switch, they will have it for homework, and so that night I'll go, and then the next morning I'll give them feedback
Oh,
on their exit ticket.
very nice. Anything else in reading that's happening this week?
No, we just turned in our reading fair project, so that's pretty much it.
Very nice. Okay, moving into science. What are we doing in science this week?
Okay, for science this week is we will identify fossils as evidence of past living organisms and the nature of their environment. So the environment is constantly changing, and the students are going to see, depending on the kind of fossils that they find, whether it is an aquatic animal or it is a reptile, they get to see what the environment looked like when that organism was alive.
Wow.
That's good.
Are they seeing this? Are they seeing pictures or?
So we started by having a video describing what a fossil is, how does it turn into a fossil, or the organisms turn into a fossil, and then they got to see how the theory of Pangea, how our continents have shifted. For example, in Antarctica they found reptiles, and they got to see that there was claws or scratch marks. So they saw trace fossils. They saw where they used to live, the burrows in Antarctica, which gave them evidence that it was a warmer environment. So they got to see examples. So they showed also another example in Illinois that they found really big ferns. So that meant that there was a rainforest at some point. We are also doing a hands-on activity or an investigation where they act as paleontologists. So they had to dig for fossils, and as soon as they found a fossil, they had to investigate the kind of rock it was found in, the habitat that could be depending on the rock, and then the fossil was broken, so it wasn't a clear picture. Then they had to compare it to other organisms and see which type of organism it could have been.
No, that's
That's
fun.
fun.
Yeah, how's the reception been for that?
They loved it. I did have to be very clear with instructions, but once I told them to take it seriously, like if they're real paleontologists, do it slowly, make sure we have to be careful with fossils, they really got into character and they
Yeah,
enjoyed
'cause
it.
You are using the sand, right?
Yes.
So I'm sure that was fun.
Fun.
Is
Yeah.
this the closing product, or is there? what's
No, the closing product, the closing product, after they filled in their table with all the organisms that they found and the fossils, then they had to compare and contrast. They had to answer some questions regarding their specific fossils. Every group had a different set. So
Okay.
depending their table, they had to answer or fill in some questions.
Okay, and
Differentiation.
this is done on paper?
Yeah, it was an assignment. It was a handout on paper.
And done as a group, right? So,
Yes, it was a group activity.
oh,
And so
okay.
the whole group had the same fossils.
Oh, okay. For acceleration?
For GT, the students get to compare and contrast acceleration if they already know it.
Yes.
Mhm.
See, if the students already know it, then I had them, or if they're gonna do an activity where they're gonna create their own, I guess, change in sediments. So they're gonna create their own layers. They're gonna choose different fossils. They're going to just glue them in different layers, and then they have to explain how did that even happen? Like, why is it that you put a fish at the bottom, the bottom layer, the first layer,
Uh-huh.
and then in a newer layer now you have reptiles. So they have to come up with their own story of, okay, so this happened or we used to have an ocean and then it turned into a swamp, and then so they have to come up with their own reasoning behind their layers.
Wow, so this is like a separate assignment.
Mm-hmm. They get
Oh,
to
very
do.
nice.
They design it.
Mhm. And how is this graded? Like for the students that are not doing that?
For the students that are not doing it, they have a separate assignment, so they'll do anchor charts. So this would be the acceleration, and then the students that need a little bit more help,
Okay,
I
for
review. So they each have their own.
okay, so like for
assignments.
the students that need the intervention, they get something that kind of just
Something.
complements the
The lesson.
yes,
Mhm.
and then this is just an accelerated activity.
Yes.
Oh, right, that's very nice. So then after that, what would be the differentiation for GT?
So
And
GT
SPED
students,
students.
I have them more compare and contrast the difference between body fossils and trace fossils whenever they're doing their assignments. For emerging bilinguals, I give them visuals. I make sure that they know the vocabulary, pre-teach vocabulary, and that they have their anchor charts. For SPED, I also pre-teach vocabularies, and they need a more small group instruction or one-to-one, and provide illustrations. They prefer to do the drawings, so whenever I ask them questions, they ask me, can I draw that? So I let them draw their answers or give visuals.
Okay. The closing product? I mean the exit ticket, I'm sorry.
So for the exit ticket, every day we do have a different one. I make sure to check it before they leave. Usually it's not going to be the last assignment because I want to make sure that I see it before they leave my classroom. So it is a Google, it's like a PowerPoint. So every student gets a copy of the PowerPoint, and there's 5 slides, 1 slide per question. So for instance, there are drag and drops. So they have a question, and then they get like a little circle that they drag to the answer, and then they have to clarify or justify their answer.
Okay, very nice. Thank you. Okay. All right, so for the week of March 4th through the 8th, I would like for the campus to go over or to create something where we can kind of do it together, similar to how we do the reading project, or not the reading project.
Reading fair project.
The reading fair project with library, where all the classrooms are doing part of a project. I think we could do this. It's the week before spring break.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to have it, my idea would be to have it virtually so we can post it just for something to have for spring break. But I would think it would be very interesting, very cool if each class could come up with a woman that would be influential or some kind of relation to your class, or just someone that you find interesting that we could all put into a short 1-minute video, put them all together, or maybe just like select ones so we can post it for the school. I would also like to make for that week, if you could come up with a lesson that would tie into that person, so we can have the whole school kind of doing the same thing, even if it's just one day out of the week. I'm not going to tell you if it has to be everyone has to do it on a Wednesday. Just anytime throughout that week, just so we can celebrate this and maybe get more students aware of International Women's Day. I don't think that's something that we've done in the past, so I think this would be something fun for the classroom, and it would be something cool to post for the school, for our social media, that shows that we are with the times, you know? So just thinking about your content, or yes, your content area, what's something that you could input, or what kind of lesson could you go over? I was thinking like for the music class, it would be very easy to think of influential artists. We just had the Super Bowl and we had Alicia Keys come out. That's something that's relevant, and it also has to do with International Women's Day that we're supporting that. Also, Her was performing. Any kind of female artist, I think that's something that could be done in the music class. But as far as technology or for reading or for science, could you come up with someone, or would you want to like? I think we could spend maybe like a minute or two right now looking for someone that you think could be someone that you could present, or something that you could do in your class related to that.
So last week we were going over Eleanor Abbott, and she's a teacher that was she was a teacher during the polio time. So a lot of kids during polio, they weren't going to school, they weren't going to pools, they weren't going anywhere. Do I still?
Huh?
Are we taking time first, or do I tell you?
Oh, you can tell me first.
Okay. And so she created, while kids were isolated or they were in quarantine, she created Candyland. She's the one that invented Candyland for kids. Eleanor Abbott. And now we have, I don't know if you've ever seen Abbott Elementary, but it's based on her school.
Really?
Like it's her school, it's relevant, the kids kind of can tie it into it right now. It's a funny show, so we can like show, I don't know,
A clip or
about
two,
it,
yeah.
clip or something.
They're appropriate, yeah.
But she created Candyland for these kids, and because she saw them bored, they were depressed because they were isolated, they couldn't see their parents. And then after she got better, because she also had polio, she was in the ward in the same place as the kids, so she would play with them. When she left the ward, she sold the idea to the Miller Company, or the Milton Company, the Milton Company. He's a game maker, and he made it into what is now one of the Hasbro, like the huge Candyland
staples, yeah.
Yes, and they turned it into a board game, and then now it's a online game. They made an online game. Candy Crush is based off of that, and even Wreck-It Ralph, part of the whole Vanellope or the whole Candyland world, is because of that game, which is crazy because not everyone just thinks it's a Hasbro game, but it was actually invented by a teacher who did it during that time.
Wow, that was very interesting.
So,
And this was a lesson that you had already did when?
Last week.
Last week. And was it a story, or was the?
It was just a little article about her, but we didn't go in depth about her.
Oh, nice.
It was just her name popped up, and that was it. So I think going a little bit more into depth about her, she changed the I don't know, it was one of the first games.
Yeah.
Oh, also, she did it for little kids because if you've ever played Candyland, you don't have to read anything. It's just little candies. So she did it for kids that didn't know how to read, who they were in the ward and they weren't learning. So she kind of made it for everyone. She integrated it for everyone.
Oh,
So I think that would be cool for her. I think that's.
And if we did it like in video format, you could have maybe like the kids like showing the board game, or like maybe like interacting with the board game. So that it's
and the
like,
evolution of it, because it's changed so much from when she made it. They think it's super funny because they say that hers looks kind of creepy. She drew it, so she drew it by hand, and now, I mean, of course, now it's so pretty and vibrant and colorful. So they can see the evolution of that. I would also tie in with like history, like how from the past to the present.
Timeline.
And also how history repeats itself. How we had polio, and then during COVID, a lot of kids were playing games, board games with their parents. So I think that would be good.
Oh, that'd be nice for either science or technology. Is there any?
So yeah, I took your minute to look it up. That was listening at the
No,
same time.
perfect.
So I just saw. So there aren't enough women in STEM. So there's like a lot of scholarships out there for women in STEM because we're pretty much invisible when it comes to STEM. And so my first one that came out was I'm probably gonna not say her name right, but Ada Lovelace. And she is the first woman, what was it, coder, I guess it says here, that she is the first woman computer programmer. And she actually, her notes helped Alan Turing use a form of inspiration for his work on the first modern computer in the 1940s. So because of her notes in analytical engine, helped create that first modern computer in the 1940s. I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah.
'Cause I
Wow,
had
that
no
is really
idea.
interesting.
Yeah. So I'm glad you asked that question because women in STEM, I mean, I tell my kid, I have an older daughter, I tell her all the time, you gotta go into STEM. Like, there aren't enough women in the industry because I feel like people just think like, no, like, you can't,
Like it's
you
a
can't
man's-
code.
yeah.
So
But there's a lot of scholarships.
there is a lot of scholarship opportunities for women in STEM because there aren't enough. So I thought that was super interesting. And so there's actually an ADA Loveless Day. I don't know
Oh
what it
wow,
is.
that's cool.
Yeah, and it's an international celebration of the outstanding achievements of women in science, technology, engineering, and math. There's a day to showcase the vital work that women in STEM currently do.
That's
That was super interesting. I
yeah,
liked
it's
it.
interesting.
That
Yeah,
was
no,
a
we could definitely
really great question.
expand on that. I was talking to my students the other day about how well, we're looking at music history and seeing like how the evolution of that from 400 years ago, how we got to today. One of the things that we found out or we're talking about is how women were not really allowed to play instruments. It was kind of looked down upon. In the Baroque period, which is about 400 years ago, they were completely excluded. They weren't allowed to play instruments. And then when we get to the classical period, which is something that we're discussing more recently, we talked about Mozart, which was one of the most famous composers of all time, but he has a sister, an older sister, who was better than him for a long time, until his parents were kind of, let's have the boy do the music. So that's, we've come a long way from women are not allowed to, they're kind of pushed to the side, and now they're just as prominent. We have Rihanna in the Super Bowl. So so there's just a lot. The way that we view women in STEM now is, I'm sure in the future will be like, oh, remember when they were on the sidelines and now they're the ones in charge and men don't exist anymore and it's just women. Just kidding. No, but just the evolution will be something to see in the future.
Yeah.
For science, also you mentioned that there's not enough women in STEM. So in the hallway, I have a bulletin board that's like scientists wanted. And most of the time when we talk about science, it's like men. So I wanted to make sure that there was women also being represented. So there's Ellen Ochoa, and she was the first female scientist that became, or the first Latina woman to go up in space. So making sure that the students also know that women can do any job, whether it is in space or computer science. I also shared software programmers. Any STEM related job can also be done by women. So I can have students research different jobs that they're interested in, and then seeing if there's already positions for women, and maybe even investigate the pay difference and things like that.
Yeah.
For jobs.
This is definitely more in the like the brainstorming. This is still about a month away, but just so we can start thinking about how we can incorporate this into be a school-wide thing to where everyone's talking about it, so that we can have that be like a theme of that week, especially right before spring break. So it'll be something that we can. I mean, before the holidays, there's always that little lull of what are we gonna do before the break. So this is something that we can do together. So as far as behavior issues that we've been having in the campus, in regards to this specific hallway, this hallway has 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, and maybe not in relationship to each other, or maybe it is. What I would like to know, what administration would like to know, is what we can do to kind of solve some of these issues, because 5th grade has ideas, 4th grade has ideas, 3rd grade has ideas. So what I would like to do is kind of blend that together so that we're all on the same page. So starting with restroom policies, it was a bigger issue in the past where we had issues as far as what was going on inside of the restroom. There was some smear marks, and there had to be an explanation about the way that we use the restroom. But as far as the policies for your classrooms, what is your restroom policy right now?
So right now for restroom policies, we have a restroom log. So we, they sign out, they check the time, they input the time, and then when they come back, they have to sign back in. And for the most part, since we're teaching, sometimes we don't even notice how long they're gone until I'm like, oh, it's been 5 minutes and you're still in the restroom. The restroom's right there. So it's more like that. The kids know that if someone is out, they cannot go out. But for the most part, it's been enforcing it. Having the administration maybe come into the rooms and giving them their talks. Ms. Mesa, also the counselor, came and talked to them about being respectful, about boundaries, about cleaning up after themselves. They're getting older, hygiene. So I think that was a really good thing that did help. It aided with that.
As far as boys and girls, is it one at a time from each? So like a boy and a girl can go at the same time?
I let them one boy, one girl.
Okay.
I think that's the same for all 5th grade. So we let one boy at a time, one girl at a time. So let's say if we forget, or for me, if I'm teaching and I don't know the time, another student's like, Miss Reese, so-and-so has taken so long, so I have them go check because another person needs to go. So I think that has been helping, and we send one boy and one girl because then other people really need it, and then they have to go call them. So
Okay.
I think that's more beneficial.
Something that's been going on in these restrooms in this hallway is that there's frequently 3, 4, 5 students in the restroom at the same time. This is particular to this hallway because there is 3 grade levels as opposed to 2nd and 1st who share it's only those 2 grades. So in this one restroom, I wanted to know your thoughts on what we could do as a hallway policy for this restroom, because it's good that we have 5th grade has a general policy for themselves, but do you have any ideas of what we could do to ensure that this entire hallway can use this one restroom efficiently? Because what 3rd grade has to resort to doing is sometimes they'll just send them to another one. It's a little bit further to go somewhere else. They'd like to use just this one. So is there any ideas that you might have for how to filter that in this restroom?
We could maybe have CSC members, maybe one student a day to check up, like once per block, maybe have them be checking if the area is clean, since they are in charge of, courtesy service. So they would be checking up if they're turning on the lights, if the students are behaving. We wouldn't want to distract them from their classroom, so it would be like one time per block. Maybe we could have multiple kids, and then, can I go check? I'm done with my work, and they can be in charge of checking the restrooms.
I know that in 2nd grade, when we were in 2nd grade, we would just take them all at the same
Together.
time. But I mean, I feel like that's also cutting into instructional time.
It is, yes.
So what is it, 10-15 minutes that it would take, and then bringing them back? I don't think it's as efficient. And then sometimes they didn't even have to go; they just wanted to be playing in there because everyone was in there. So I think one at a time is the best possible policy.
And they
that
wouldn't
can
know who is in charge, so then they're not gonna
You're right.
know if they're.
It's like, hey, can you go and do a sweep really quick?
Yeah,
So
like a
then
sweep.
they would just go and check and then come back.
No, so at first I was thinking you're taking away from a student if they have to be a hall monitor, which I think is not
It's like
really a
once
solution.
per-
No,
But if
it's
they
just-
have maybe like a system for going for one student to just go check and just doesn't even have to be.
Or even like whoever's already done with their work, hey, go check. Is there anyone who would want to go check?
Yeah, I'm
Making
thinking.
sure they're responsible students.
What if there's like a schedule for like? I mean, there's like a lot of CSC students, so like every
2 girls, 2 boys per week, or like they'll have that job, so that way it's not confusing that who's gonna go today. We can keep it per week.
And knowing that it's not the same students.
yeah, I
We'll
mean,
try something
having
like that.
students having to report the other students is kind of last ditch effort. But I mean,
but honestly, they do.
Yeah.
they're
like-
yes, every
Like,
time.
they're playing in the restroom.
Yes, I walk to this hall, and most of the time when I walk through here, there's chatter. There's a little hangout session. I'm just like, hey guys, yeah, it's time to go to class.
Yeah.
So there's a way so that it doesn't have to be whoever luckily is walking by. That's kind of what we're trying to achieve, where it's done on its own. I think maybe also I don't know how often your students are going to the restroom, but maybe just you could experiment with trying just, it's only one at a time. That's what I do. That's what I've done in the past in my class. And I've never had an issue of 10 people want to go at the same time. It's always been, obviously it's a separate learning environment. But I've always stuck to one at a time, and that's worked for me for my one restroom. I think I have in the classroom that I was in, I had the opportunity to have 2 at a time.
Mhm.
There's not that much use of my restroom, but I just stick to one, and it's
It
always
works.
been pretty good. Yeah. So I think maybe not something that you have to do, but something to experiment, so we can start trying to have a solution for that.
Mhm.
I don't think we'd have to change anything for the entire school, or maybe we do. Now, like you said, for second grade, you had to take them
Yes.
when you were there, and I've done that in the past for kindergarten too. But as far as the other restrooms, I don't think there's that much of an issue.
Of an issue, yeah.
Yeah. Continuing with behavior, classroom discipline in 5th grade has been an issue to the point last time that we talked about it. There had to be a rotation of students
Mhm.
just to get into a different rhythm, or I'm
Yes.
assuming that was the goal.
Mhm.
How's that been going? It's been going on for a week or 2.
Mhm. I think
Yes,
it's,
I
started
think.
somewhere?
Mhm. I think it's been working really well.
Mhm.
Our students, they're given to us randomly at the beginning of the year, and they're already in their groupings. The way that they were grouped had not been working. They were at different levels of learning. Behavior wise, they were also disrupting a lot. So we were able to blend them together with their strengths and their weaknesses in order to help out each other. And it has been working really well. I had one of my groups today that I gave them extra points because they were working as a team amazingly, and they were from one student per our homerooms,
Mhm.
and they were all working together in one. So I thought that was really good. They
Wow.
helped each other.
I like it too. Also, they're out of their comfort zone, so they're making new friends. There's nothing wrong with them separating themselves from their cliques. Sometimes it's the people that they hang out with. They're generally great kids,
Yes.
and then it'll be just a little group, and they just like to talk. They just like
Yeah,
to be
no,
disruptive. And now they're out of their comfort zone, and they're working. Like I've seen so much students,
Making
so many
improvement.
students that weren't doing it, and that now they're finished. They finished for themselves.
Yeah,
Like,
no, it's
where was this
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks ago?
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, I'm always been of the opinion that all students are good students, but they can have bad behavior sometimes, and then with some students, poor behavior kind of influences more poor behavior. So there's nothing wrong with the student, but just with one instance of poor behavior, that can spread to a clique or to a certain group of students, like you said. So if this is working, then something that we can maybe continue. I think as far as, is there any instructional loss? I don't think so. I think it's improved. Other issues as far as moving the classes around.
We just had a little bit of a bump with the attendance because when they come in late in the mornings, they'll go to the class that they're supposed to be.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm like, oh, are they absent? Are they not here? Are they here? So, but that's easily fixable. Now we've just told them, if you do come in late, come and say hi to your homeroom teacher. Just be like, let's go say I'm here, or give me your slip, or just so that we know.
More of organizational issues. So for grading, we do have to grade by homeroom. So I just tell the students, even if they're mixed, to stick to where they know their drop boxes are, and that way I can still grade that
First
homeroom.
block,
If they don't finish their work and they have to put it in their basket, I do have to look through all the names and pass out whoever's here, but it's still being organized, so it's just a little few seconds that we're missing, so it's not
but
that
it's
bad.
not as bad.
All right.
It's better.
The pros outweigh the
the pros.
cons.
Okay. Yeah. No. As far as when I've had to do the music class, keeping them in the homerooms has been beneficial for grading, but also for safety. That's always what I think of. Fire drills. I have the binders by class. I don't know who's. Oh yeah, we're mixed today. Okay, I don't know who I'm supposed to have today. So that's always been one of my main concerns. But I can see your worries about, oh, now I have to grade and who's in which class. But if you already found a solution for that with keeping their things organized in the classroom. So that's excellent. But I'm glad that's getting better. I'm glad that's improving, even though we have to try new things sometimes. It's good to experiment, and if something works, hey, just keep doing it, right? A problem that we had earlier in the year that I noticed more of was bullying. I haven't heard as much of it recently, probably since after we came back from the break, the Christmas break, I think it's been relaxed as far as this person's picking on me, or these other kids are saying this about this person. I haven't heard much about it from my perspective. I don't know about in the classrooms if it's persisting or if it's moved or if it's changed in any way.
Not really. I mean, for the most part, I think that the problems that we did have with bullying, a lot of them were just tattling on each other. They were just picking and saying, like, oh, they're bullying me. Having Miss Mesa coming into the rooms and explaining respect,
clarifying what
bullying is, respecting each other, being nice to each other, showing manners. Again, you don't have to be friends with each other, but you do need to respect each other. I think that did work also. Having her assemblies, she had a couple assemblies in the gym, and then she came into our classroom.
She comes in to do her lessons. And I think now that they're also mixed, it's helping even more because they are with people that they don't even talk to or they're not used to talking. So they just stay with the people that they're comfortable with. And they haven't been fighting at the moment. No issues with that.
Yeah, I think that was my fault. What I meant to say was the claims of bullying, right?
Oh, yes.
So not exactly that there was bullying, but the cry for it, right?
Yes.
But that's good. I'm glad that I haven't heard much about that as far as discipline. I think since we came back from break, it's been a little bit more about just classroom discipline and in the hallways and things like that. But as you mentioned, it's gotten better. So not much to worry about. As far as looking forward to the upcoming tests, we have Telpas
next week,
and we have STAR coming up. Is there any issues that you foresee? Is there anything that's a problem right now? Maybe with
absences. I guess just making sure that the students that are have a lot of absences or are usually absent, we need to make sure that they know the dates and that they're here because most of them are going to be testing. So that would be the main issue since we only have 2 days for the test.
Yes, we don't have
So there
any
really
scheduled retesting.
really.
No, we don't have any. Then we have benchmarks. So it's Telpas, benchmarks, map testing.
So the students need to be coming.
Here.
They need
Yeah.
to be
They
here.
need to
100%
be here.
attendance.
Yes.